This weekend is Halloween, which means that everybody that you know is going to be dressing up as their favorite ghosts and goblins. As it turns out, they aren't the only ones, because there's a long tradition of magazines dressing up their covers in spooky and horrifying ways. Before you go out trick-or-treating this weekend, I wanted to take a brief look at some of the best and worst horror-themed magazine covers from the 1980s and 90s, including publications from both the US and the UK. Here are just a few of the covers that'll get you in the spirit this Halloween. When I think of horror-themed magazine covers, the first thing that comes to mind is GamePro. Specifically, this cover. I love this design. It's by Francis Mao, who always did such a great job of giving personality to the GamePro covers. This is a great shot of Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, Igor, and even a witch burying the reader alive. Which sounds horrifying, but almost feels joyous in this case, what with everybody genuinely loving what they're doing. Just look at those smiles. GamePro also gave us the Splatterhouse cover, which is definitely an eye-catcher, but the gruesomeness is undercut a little bit by the fact that the melee weapon is covered in green slime and not red blood. GamePro wanted to be menacing, but also knew that the audience was mainly kids and younger teens. That's not the balance Nintendo Power was able to strike when they created their September-October 1988 cover. While this is obviously a costumed man holding a vampire mask, there was some controversy surrounding the appropriateness of this design. Some parents worried that it might be too violent or even disturbing for the target audience. Personally, I like the attention to detail, what with the skull, foggy background, and even a hand reaching out of the mist. I wouldn't call it scary, but it's definitely the most frightful cover Nintendo Power ever produced. Speaking of Dracula, this is the only SuperPlay cover that even comes close to being horror-themed. I like Drac's design, but he's not really doing anything interesting here. It's not especially scary or even memorable. The same can be said about this version of Dracula on the cover of Video Games and Computer Entertainment. Wait. Is that supposed to be Dracula? It looks a little bit more like the Joker here. Actually, wait a second. No, after reading the words below him, I think he's supposed to be a wizard. He's in a hands-up, don't-shoot pose, and that face. Oh man, that doofy face. If he's supposed to be a wizard, then why is he only using his thumbs to cast the Turbo Express spell? Hey, wizard dude, maybe if you used all 10 fingers, that super expensive handheld system would have had more than 45 minutes of battery life. Thanks for nothing. Now, if you want a scarier Video Games and Computer Entertainment cover, then you're better off with this Dungeon Master design, which is one of the rare covers to use a mummy. I also think that this Prince of Persia scenario is a lot scarier than whatever that magician was trying to do. I mean, this poor guy is only seconds away from getting impaled by a bunch of spikes. And would you look at those shoes? Yeesh! And while we're on the topic of video games and computer entertainment, I might as well point out that Elvira, the Mistress of the Night, appeared on their November 1990 cover. It's not especially scary, but I have to shout out the magazine for at least giving her the spotlight. You won't find Elvira on too many other video game magazines. One thing that I've learned from reading old European magazines is that it's sometimes hard to tell if a cover is supposed to be frightening or if it's on accident. This image on the very first issue of the Games Machine is probably not designed to be horror-themed. Well, let me tell you, I find it absolutely terrifying. This is way scarier than Simon Belmont holding Dracula's head on the front of the Nintendo Power cover. Another example of that is this crazy Simpsons cover found on N-Force. It's almost as if Bart's very being is being undone and merging with this brown-haired boy, and oh man, can you see the pain and fear in his face? Guys, that's the look of somebody who knows that they're about to be erased on a molecular level. Yeah, this is definitely the time to have a cow, man. I would also say that Mean Machine Sega managed to turn Contra Hardcore into horror by running this cover. which is a genuinely chilling take on the Wolfman design. And speaking of terrifying Wolfmen, I actually really like this transformation shot found on Sega Master Force. It's one of the few magazines to put Wolfchild on the cover, and the art they came up with is truly something else. Let's go ahead and stay on Sega Force for a moment, because we have to talk about this cover from February 1992. I joked around about not knowing if something is supposed to be horror-themed or not, but there's no debating this one. With blood dripping down, blisters, spiky teeth, a weird tongue, killer claws, and that evil stare. There's no question that this is supposed to be a horrifying monster. I mean, the giveaway is that he's drinking Pepsi. Only monsters drink Pepsi. Sega Force also gave us this truly frightening Alien 3 design, even going as far as to tell us to be very afraid. Why? Well, it's because the bitch is back. I mean, it says it right there on the cover. But even if it didn't have that wording, this would be a scary cover. Just look at how aggressive that xenomorph is here. That's definitely not something you want to see coming at you. Like, at least top 3 fears. You know what? Classic game magazines have always been good at making the alien look aggressive and terrifying. I mean, just look at this GamePro issue, which is actually one of my favorite illustrations of a xenomorph. I suspect that's probably fire surrounding the alien, but I mean, it could just as easily be a torrent of blood. This is one of GamePro's more disturbing designs. In stark contrast, Die Hard Game Fan never created a cover that visceral. About the closest they got was this admittedly cool design for Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which tosses the Game Fan's monitor hero in with the kids, a giant baby, and that masked chainsaw dude. It's definitely one of their more recognizable covers, even if it's not especially scary. A couple decades later, when some of the Game Fan editors created Hardcore Gamer magazine, they ended up creating a far scarier cover using Capcom's Dead Rising for inspiration. Sure, there's still some silliness here, but that's a genuinely frightening spot to be in, and the scenario is definitely not played for laughs. This is by far HGM's most anxiety-inducing cover. The truth is, just because you put a zombie on the cover doesn't mean that it's gonna be scary. Just look at this next generation design, which seems to be far more interested in showing you the detailed character design than actually scaring you. A lot of the impact is blunted by the fact that he's looking away, not even paying attention to the reader. I mean, just as long as you toss down the magazine and run, you shouldn't have any problems avoiding this brain eater. And that's the problem. And that brings us to this infamous Electronic Gaming Monthly issue from 1999, which has the distinction of being one of the magazine's worst designs. Look, it has a unique style and it definitely stands out, but nothing about this works for me. This isn't horrifying, it's just bad. The scariest part is that they so thoroughly blow what could have been a really cool concept. Seeing a bunch of humans chase after the zombie in a roles reversed sort of way. Man, that could have been such a cool cover design. I'm not sure I can say the same thing about this TurboPlay cover. My guess is that this came out even better than the original pitch, especially when you look at how detailed those bodies are. But the question I have is whether or not the artist intended it to be as terrifying as it is. Even if you can get past the heads being replaced by televisions, there's just something unsettling about the way these characters look. This is peak nightmare fuel. And that's also true of this Twisted Metal cover featured on the 4th issue of Foul. From an artistic perspective, this is actually a really great cover. It manages to make Sweet Tooth way more menacing than he is in the actual game. And seeing him bite into a razor blade filled apple is a really nice touch. The cover even promotes a Satan vs. Video Games feature, which has already piqued my interest. However, if I were a kid, I suspect that this other Foul cover probably would have freaked me out more than that creepy clown. I mean, here we have all of our favorite mascot characters tied up with Sonic the Hedgehog dead after literally being shot in the head. Is it horror related? Nah, probably not. It's more crime themed than anything. But of all the covers we've talked about today, this design is definitely going to be the one that traumatizes kids the most. And at the end of the day, isn't that exactly what Halloween is supposed to be about? Hey, thanks for watching me talk about old school magazine covers. This is something I want to do more of if I find a good theme or something. Let me know if you want to see more episodes like this one. Now, here's the question I have for you. Which of these classic magazines had the scariest cover? There are so many good ones to choose from, but I think I know which one is going to be the fan favorite. Can't wait to see if I'm right. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back on Halloween Day for an epic horror-themed Game Over episode, followed next week by multiple Cotton reviews. Oh boy, nobody's getting any rest here at Defunct Games, so do me a favor and click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.